Welcome back. Let's read some more before I get too tired. I'm already a little tired, but it's not even 1 p.m. No, that's my airline sim game. I'd like to read about this Doom video game from old days. But I did not have a computer back then. I did not have my own computer in the 1990s. In the 90s, of course, I had a very low income. I had and welfare check. I was welfare checked and had money from to go to like high school. Low student support money from the Danish. When you go to high school, you can get a little bit money every month from the Danish state. And computers, this PC computers, did cost like a lot of money, like $2,000. That did cost a lot of money in the 90s.
Doom 1993 video game. Doom redirects here. For the reboot, see Doom 2016 video game. For other uses, see Doom disambiguation. Doom is a first-person shooter game developed and published by ID Software. Released on the 10th of December 1993 for DOS, it is the first installment in the Doom franchise. The player assumes the role of a space marine, later unofficially referred to as Doom Guy, fighting through hordes of undead humans and invading demons. The game begins on the moons of Mars and finishes in Hell, with the player traversing each level to find its exit or defeat its final boss. It is an early example of 3D graphics in video games, and has enemies and objects as 2D images, a technique sometimes referred to as 2.5D graphics. Doom was the third major independent release by ID Software, after Commander Keen, 1990-1991, and Wolfenstein 3D, 1992. In May 1992, ID started developing a darker game focused on fighting demons with technology, using a new 3D game engine from the lead programmer, John Carmack. The designer Tom Hall initially wrote a science fiction plot, but he and most of the story were removed from the project, with the final game featuring an action-heavy design by John Romero and Sandy Peterson. ID published Doom as a set of 3 episodes under the shareware model, marketing the full game by releasing the first episode free. A retail version with an additional episode was published in 1995 by GT Interactive as the Ultimate Doom. Doom was a critical and commercial success, earning a reputation as one of the best and most influential video games of all time. It sold an estimated 3.5 million copies by 1999, and up to 20 million people are estimated to have played it within 2 years of launch. It has been termed the father of first-person shooters and is regarded as one of the most important games in the genre. It has been cited by video game historians as shifting the direction and public perception of the medium as a whole, as well as sparking the rise of online games and communities. It led to an array of imitators and clones, as well as a robust modding scene and the birth of speedrunning as a community. Its high level of graphic violence led to controversy from a range of groups. Doom has been ported to a variety of platforms both officially and unofficially and has been followed by several games in the series, including Doom 2, 1994, Doom 64, 1997, Doom 3, 2004, Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, 2020, and Doom: The Dark Ages, 2025, as well as the films Doom 2005, and Doom: Annihilation, 2019. Gameplay, edit. Doom is a first-person shooter presented with 3D graphics. While the environment is shown in a 3D perspective, the enemies and objects are instead 2D sprites rendered at fixed angles, a technique sometimes referred to as 2.5D graphics or billboarding. In the single-player campaign mode, the player controls an unnamed space marine, later unofficially termed Doomguy, through military bases on the moons of Mars and in Hell. To finish a level, the player must traverse through labyrinthine areas to reach a marked exit room. Levels are grouped into named episodes, with the final level of each focusing on a boss fight. While traversing the levels, the player must fight a variety of enemies, including demons and possessed undead humans. Enemies often appear in large groups. The 5 difficulty levels adjust the number of enemies and amount of damage they do, with enemies moving and attacking faster than normal on the hardest difficulty setting. The monsters have simple behavior. They move toward their opponent if they see or hear them, and attack by biting, clawing, or using magic abilities such as fireballs. The player must manage supplies of ammunition, health, and armor while traversing the levels. The player can find weapons and ammunition throughout the levels or can collect them from dead enemies, including a pistol, a chainsaw, a plasma rifle, and the BFG 9000. The player also encounters pits of toxic waste, ceilings that lower and crush objects, and locked doors requiring a collectible keycard or a remote switch. Power-ups include health or armor points, a mapping computer, partial invisibility, a radiation suit against toxic waste, invulnerability, or a super-strong melee berserker status. Cheat codes allow the player to unlock all weapons, walk through walls, or become invulnerable. 2 multiplayer modes are playable over a network: cooperative, in which 2 to 4 players team up to complete the main campaign, and deathmatch, in which 2 to 4 players compete to kill the other player's characters as many times as possible. Multiplayer was initially only playable over local networks, but a 4-player online multiplayer mode was made available 1 year after launch through the Dwango service. Plot, edit. Doom is divided into 3 episodes, each containing about 9 levels: Knee-Deep in the Dead, The Shores of Hell, and Inferno. A 4th episode, Thy Flesh Consumed, was added in an expanded version, The Ultimate Doom, released 2 years after Doom. The campaign contains very few plot elements, with a minimal story presented mostly through the instruction manual and text descriptions between episodes. In the future, an unnamed Marine is posted to a dead-end assignment on Mars after assaulting a superior officer who ordered his unit to fire on civilians. The Union Aerospace Corporation, which operates radioactive waste facilities there, allows the military to conduct secret teleportation experiments that turn deadly. A base on Phobos urgently requests military support, while Deimos disappears entirely, and the Marine joins a combat force to secure Phobos. He waits at the perimeter as ordered while the entire assault team is wiped out. With no way off the moon, and armed with only a pistol, he enters the base intent on revenge. In Knee-Deep in the Dead, the Marine fights demons and possessed humans in the military and waste facilities on Phobos. The episode ends with the Marine defeating 2 powerful Barons of Hell guarding a teleporter to the Deimos base. After the battle, the Marine passes through the teleporter and is knocked unconscious by a horde of enemies, awakening with only a pistol. In the Shores of Hell, the Marine fights through corrupted research facilities on Deimos, culminating in the defeat of a gigantic cyberdemon. From an overlook, he discovers that the moon is floating above Hell and rappels down to the surface. In Inferno, the Marine battles through Hell itself and destroys a cybernetic spider demon that masterminded the invasion of the moons. When a portal to Earth opens, the Marine steps through to discover that Earth has been invaded. Thy Flesh Consumed follows the Marines' initial assault on the Earth invaders, setting the stage for Doom 2. Development, edit. Main article, Development of Doom. Concept, edit. ID Software released Wolfenstein 3D in May 1992. Later called the grandfather of 3D shooters, it established the genre's popularity and its reputation for fast action and technological advancement. When most of the studio began work on additional episodes for Wolfenstein, ID co-founder and lead programmer John Carmack instead began technical research on a new game. Following the release of Wolfenstein 3D, Spear of Destiny in September 1992, the team began to plan their next game. They were tired of Wolfenstein and wanted to create another 3D game using a new engine Carmack was developing. Co-founder and lead designer Tom Hall proposed a new game in the Commander Keen series, but the team decided that the Keen platforming gameplay was a poor fit for Carmack's fast-paced 3D engines. Additionally, the other co-founders, designer John Romero and lead artist Adrian Carmack, no relation to John Carmack, wanted to create something in a darker style than the Keen games. John Carmack conceived a game about using technology to fight demons, inspired by a Dungeons & Dragons campaign the team played. This campaign would also influence the design of Quake, 1996, and Daikatana, 2000. More broadly, the team intended to combine the styles of the Evil Dead 2 and Aliens films. The working title was Green and Pissed, but Carmack renamed it Doom based on a line from the 1986 film The Color of Money, "What you got in there, / in here." Doom. The team agreed to pursue the Doom concept, and development began in November 1992. The initial development team was composed of 5 people, programmers John Carmack and Romero, artists Adrian Carmack and Kevin Cloud, and designer Hall. They moved operations to a dark office building, naming it Suite 666 while drawing inspiration from the noises they heard from a neighboring dental practice. They also decided to cut ties with Apogee Software, their previous publisher, and self-publish Doom, as they felt that they were outgrowing the publisher and could make more money by self-publishing. Design, edit. In November, Hall delivered a design document that he called the Doom Bible, detailing the project's plot, backstory, and design goals. His design was a science fiction horror concept wherein scientists on the moon open a portal to an alien invasion. Over a series of levels, the player discovers that the aliens are demons while hell steadily infects the level design. John Carmack not only disliked the proposed story but dismissed the idea of having a story at all. Story in a game is like story in a porn movie, it's expected to be there, but it's not that important. Rather than a deep story, he wanted to focus on technological innovation, dropping the levels and episodes of Wolfenstein in favor of a fast, continuous world. Hall disliked the idea, but the rest of the team sided with Carmack. Hall spent the next few weeks reworking the Doom Bible to work with Carmack's technological ideas. However, the team then realized that Carmack's vision for a seamless world would be impossible given the hardware limitations, and Hall was forced to rework the design document once again. At the start of 1993, ID put out a press release, touting Hall's story about fighting off demons while knee-deep in the dead. The press release proclaimed the new 3D engine features that John Carmack had created, as well as aspects including multiplayer, that had not yet even been designed. Early versions were built to match the Doom Bible, and a pre-alpha version of the first level included Hall's introductory bass scene. Initial versions also retained Wolfenstein's arcade-style scoring, but this was later removed as it clashed with Doom's intended tone. The studio also experimented with other game systems before removing them, such as lives, an inventory, a secondary shield, and a complex user interface. Soon, however, the Doom Bible as a whole was rejected. Romero wanted a game even more brutal and fast than Wolfenstein, which did not leave room for the character-driven plot Hall had created. Additionally, the team believed it emphasized realism over entertaining gameplay, and they did not see the need for a design document at all. Some ideas were retained, but the story was dropped and most of the design was removed. By early 1993, Hall created levels that became part of an internal demo. Carmack and Romero, however, rejected the military architecture of Hall's level design. Romero especially believed that the boxy, flat level designs failed to innovate on Wolfenstein, and failed to show off the engine's capabilities. He began to create his own, more abstract levels, which the rest of the team saw as a great improvement. Hall was upset with the reception of his designs and how little impact he was having as the lead designer. He was also upset with how much he was having to fight with John Carmack to get what he saw as obvious gameplay improvements, such as flying enemies, and began to spend less time at work. The other developers, however, felt that Hall was not in sync with the team's vision and was becoming a problem. In July, the other founders of ID fired Hall, who went to work for Apogee. He was replaced by Sandy Peterson in September, 10 weeks before the game was released. Peterson later recalled that John Carmack and Romero wanted to hire other artists instead, but Cloud and Adrian disagreed, saying that a designer was required to help build a cohesive gameplay experience. The team also added a third programmer, Dave Taylor. Peterson and Romero designed the rest of Doom's levels, with different aims. The team believed that Peterson's designs were more technically interesting and varied, while Romero's were more aesthetically interesting. In late 1993, a month before release, John Carmack began to add multiplayer. After the multiplayer component was coded, the development team began playing 4-player games, which Romero termed Deathmatch, and Cloud named the act of killing other players fragging. According to Romero, the Deathmatch mode was inspired by fighting games such as Street Fighter II, Fatal Fury, and Art of Fighting. Engine, edit. See also, Doom Engine. Doom was written largely in the C programming language, with a few elements in assembly language. The developers used Next computers running the NEXT-STEP operating system. The level and graphical data was stored in WAD files, short for Where's All the Data, separately from the engine. This allowed for any part of the design to be changed without needing to adjust the engine code. Carmack designed this system so that fans could easily modify the game. He had been impressed by the modifications made by fans of Wolfenstein 3D and wanted to support that by releasing a map editor with an easily swappable file structure. Unlike Wolfenstein, which has flat levels with walls at right angles, the Doom engine allows for walls and floors at any angle or height but does not allow areas to be stacked vertically. The lighting system is based on adjusting the color palette of surfaces directly. Rather than calculating how light traveled from light sources to surfaces using ray tracing, the game calculates the light level of a small area based on the predetermined brightness of said area. It then modifies the color palette of that section's surface textures to mimic how dark it would look. This same system is used to cause faraway surfaces to look darker than close ones. Romero came up with new ways to use Carmack's lighting engine, such as strobe lights. He programmed engine features such as switches and movable stairs and platforms. After Romero's complex level designs started to cause problems with the engine, Carmack began to use binary space partitioning to quickly select the reduced portion of a level that the player could see at a given time. Taylor, along with programming other features, added cheat codes to aid in development and left them in for players. Art direction, edit. Adrian Carmack was the lead artist for Doom, with Kevin Cloud as an additional artist. They designed the monsters to be nightmarish, with graphics that were realistic and dark instead of staged or rendered. A mixed media approach was taken to create them. The artists sculpted models of some of the enemies and took pictures of them in stop motion from 5 to 8 different angles so that they could be rotated realistically in-game. The images were then digitized and converted to 2D characters with a program written by John Carmack. Adrian Carmack made clay models for a few demons and had Gregor Punchatz build latex and metal sculptures of the others. The weapons were made from combined parts of children's toys. The developers photographed themselves as well, using Cloud's arm for the Marine's arm holding a gun, and Adrian's snakeskin boots and wounded knee for textures. The cover art was created by Don Ivan Punchatz, Gregor Punchatz's father, who worked from a short description of the game rather than detailed references. Romero was the body model used for cover. He posed during a photo shoot to demonstrate to the intended model what the pose should look like, and Punchatz used his photo. As with Wolfenstein 3D, ID hired composer Bobby Prince to create the music and sound effects. Romero directed Prince to make the music in techno and metal styles. Many tracks were directly inspired by songs by metal bands such as Alice in Chains and Pantera. Prince believed that ambient music would be more appropriate and produced numerous tracks in both styles in hope of convincing the team, and Romero incorporated both. Prince did not make music for specific levels, as they were composed before the levels were completed. Instead, Romero assigned each track to each level late in development. Prince created the sound effects based on short descriptions or concept art of a monster or weapon and adjusted them to match the completed animations. The monster sounds were created from animal noises, and Prince designed all the sounds to be distinct on the limited sound hardware of the time, even when many sounds were playing at once. He also designed the sound effects to play on different frequencies from those used for the MIDI music, so they would clearly cut through the music. Release, edit. ID Software planned to self-publish Doom for DOS-based computers and set up a distribution system leading up to the release. Jay Wilbur, who had been hired as CEO and sole member of the business team, planned the marketing and distribution of Doom. As ID would make the most money from copies they sold directly to customers, up to 85% of the planned $40 price, he decided to leverage the shareware market as much as possible. He believed that the mainstream press was uninterested in the game and bought only a single ad in any gaming magazine. Instead, he gave software retailers the option to sell copies of the first Doom episode at any price, in hopes of motivating customers to buy the full game directly from ID. The team planned to release Doom in the third quarter of 1993 but ultimately needed more time. By December 1993, the team was working non-stop, with several employees sleeping at the office. Taylor said that the work gave him such a rush that he would pass out from the intensity. ID only gave a single press preview, to Computer Gaming World in June, to a glowing response, but had also released development updates to the public continuously throughout development on the nascent internet. ID began receiving calls from people interested in the game or angry that it had missed its planned release date, as anticipation built over the year. At midnight on the 10th of December, 1993, after working for 30 straight hours testing, the development team at ID uploaded the first episode to the internet, letting interested players distribute it for them. The team was unable to connect to the FTP server at the University of Wisconsin-Madison where they planned to upload the game, since there were so many users already connected in anticipation of the release. The network administrator was forced to first increase the number of connections, and then kick off all users to make room. When the upload finished 30 minutes later, 10,000 people attempted to download the game at once, crashing the university's network. Within hours of Doom's release, university networks began banning Doom multiplayer games, as a rush of players overwhelmed their systems. The morning after release, John Carmack quickly released a patch in response to complaints of network congestion from administrators, who still needed to implement Doom-specific rules to keep their networks from crashing from the load. Ports, edit. Main article, list of Doom ports. In 1995, ID created an expanded version of Doom for the retail market with a fourth episode of Levels, which was published by GT Interactive as the Ultimate Doom. Doom has also been ported to numerous different platforms, independent from ID Software. The first port of Doom was an unofficial port to Linux, released by ID programmer Dave Taylor in 1994. It was hosted by ID but not supported or made official. Microsoft attempted to hire ID to port Doom to Windows in 1995 to promote Windows as a gaming platform, and Microsoft CEO Bill Gates briefly considered buying the company. When ID declined, Microsoft made its own licensed port, with a team led by Gabe Newell. One promotional video for Windows 95 had Gates' digitally superimposed into the game. Other official ports of Doom were released for the 32X and Atari Jaguar in 1994, SNES and PlayStation in 1995, 3DO in 1996, Sega Saturn in 1997, Acorn ISC-PC in 1998, Game Boy Advance in 2001, Xbox 360 in 2006, iOS in 2009, and Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Android in 2019, with the lattermost platforms, excluding Android, receiving a further expanded port alongside Doom 2 in 2024 along with ports for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S. Some of these became bestsellers even many years after the initial release. The ports did not all have the same content, with some having fewer levels, such as the 32X port created by John Carmack, which was released with only 2/3 of the game's levels in order to meet the console's launch date, while the PlayStation port includes the Ultimate Doom and Doom 2. The source code for Doom was released under a non-commercial license in 1997, and freely released under the GNU General Public License in 1999. Due to the release of its source code, Doom has been unofficially ported to numerous platforms. These ports include esoteric devices such as smart thermostats, pianos, and Doom itself, which led to variations of a long-running meme, "Can it run Doom?" and "It runs Doom." Reception, edit. Sales, edit. Upon its release in December 1993, Doom became an overnight phenomenon. It was an immediate financial success for ID, making a profit within a day after release. Although the company estimated that only 1% of shareware downloaders bought the full game, this was enough to generate initial daily revenue of $100,000, selling in one day what Wolfenstein had sold in 1 month. By May 1994, Wilbur said that the game had sold over 65,000 copies, and estimated that the shareware version had been distributed over 1 million times. In 1995, Wilbur estimated the first-year sales as 140,000, while in 2002 Peterson said it had sold around 200,000 copies in its first year. By late 1995, Doom was estimated to be installed on more computers worldwide than Microsoft's new operating system, Windows 95. According to PC Data, by April 1998, Doom's shareware edition had yielded 1.36 million units sold and $8.74 million in revenue in the United